engage people into the reading. Because if you give an introduction text or sentence first, they know exactly what's coming. And then they understand the details really fast. And they understand also what you want to say. And those two should not be identically, of course. There should be a difference between these. Anyway, if you want to know more, I talked a little bit about that in a video, so you can look at it if you like. Okay, so let's look at the introduction and the background. So the introduction, yes?
Do you need a reference for every statement in the introduction and background?
Yeah, good question. When do you need to have a reference? Well, actually, the first rule is if you have not come up with it yourself, you have to have a reference. Secondly, that is common knowledge does not require the reference. Like common knowledge could be like internet is a huge network, sort of. You don't need a reference there. So common knowledge is not needed for. But as long as you write of something else, you should always have a reference. And I usually say, don't just use one reference, use several. I got a question about references, so it's good that you asked that. The other day I got a question, who should I cite? There's a lot of material here, and I'm not sure. I'm reading one, but that paper had a reference to somebody else. Which reference should I use? What do you say?
The one who came up with the statement you're making.
The one you are reading, you have to reference. However, you should look at that reference. I mean, if that is referencing to somebody else, you should look at the original text. But you cannot reference to the original text unless you have read it. Why not? Have you heard about this whispering game? You have? Never? Somebody whisper in your ear and you go through the whole row and in the end you hear something totally different from what the first one said. That's the whispering game. And in these cases it is exactly the same. Because somebody wrote a paper, then you have somebody who read the paper from their point of view and their experiences, and their interpretation will be in their paper. And then you will come as the third or the fourth or so on, reading that paper with your interpretation. So your interpretation could be totally different from what the original source really meant. So you should reference to the paper you read, but if you can get the original, try to do it, because that's absolutely the most important part. So that's how you should do it, with the references. So always try to go to the real source. Okay. Did you have any more questions about the references? Because I don't think we'll come back to that either. Oh, one more. Then, when it comes to references, which kind of style should you use? Well, we do have different styles, and I usually say I don't require one style or think that one style is better than the other. But I would say that be consistent. So if you have chosen one style, stick to it. If you have numbers in the text and a reference list in the end, stick to it. Don't start to mix, because that's the absolutely dangerous here. Just choose one and stick with that. And one thing I don't like is when you have half page with text and a half page with references, because that disturbs my reading. I don't know about you. Have you read such a thesis? That is like little text and so many references. I think it disturbs the whole text. If you want to have a note from the text in the end, just use it for that explanation and put the reference in the reference list in the end. Then it will have a very nice flow and it won't destroy your text. So that's the only thing I can recommend. I know the people in economics, they always put the references in the very same page. Another thing that I see from time to time is the usage of the very same reference 10 times, one per each page. Don't do it. Just have one reference in the reference list and different page number in the text. So you say that reference 11, page 2, reference 11, page 10, and so on. And then just have one reference in the list. Don't take all of them. Okay, so let's continue with from the references to the introduction and background. Yes?
How exact do we have to be when citing references? I mean, if you cite a book, do you always include the pages?
Yes, in a citation, yes. You always have to have the page done. But if you just talk about it, you don't have to. The whole book could be included, and that's okay. So you don't have to. But when you read, when you work, you should use the pages for yourself, because if you need to go back, you will have trouble finding what you want to say. You know, if the book is 500 pages and you just use the reference to the book and say, okay, I will use this book, but you don't remember where it was. But if the whole book is included, it's okay. Citation. How many citations can you use, and how big can they be? Well, usually I say a couple of sentences, like 3, 4, and about 3 citations in the whole thesis. That's it, not more. We don't want to have big chunks of citations in the thesis. Just take the part that you really need. Because what is in the citation you can probably write anyway. The citation is only when you want to say something extra about it. So don't overuse it. Okay, introduction, background. I too often see this. Introduction, background, and then some explanation. You have then title and subtitle. That's wrong. You should always have something in between. So introduction here, where you say something general about the area first, and then the background will explain towards your area you're working within. So you start big with the area in general description and then go more narrowed to what you are doing. And then you come up with the problem. Well, I skipped this example. You can look at this example later on, so maybe you will actually learn something from it, and maybe you can use something from it later on when you write your own introduction. So we can look at it later on. I think it will take too much time to go through the examples. Okay, another thing I would like to say before the break is the problem. The problem section should be several problems, not only one problem. It should be all the problems you find that is connected to your problem, and then you select one problem that you are solving. And the problem we are talking about, what you're solving, is the problem statement. And why it's called problem statement is because you can pose it as a statement. But you can also pose it as a question. It's your decision. So the statement can be only like, it's a belief what you think it is. But the question is something you want to accomplish. Why it's better to have a question is that then you know that your result will be an answer to the question. If you have a statement, you need to show that what you have done verifies or falsifies your statement. That's the difference between a statement and a question. But it's not the wrong thing to use statement. It's just a way of writing. It's easier to answer a question than to show that a statement holds. But either of those must be used. Hypothesis, very nice, hard to use. Hypothesis is like a statement. However, hypothesis must be measurable. If you cannot measure and